Here we go. And I'm so excited because it is totally him and I cannot wait to share it for you. How many of you know sometimes that we feel like what is happening around us? The world is going crazy and getting wilder all the time. And things that are happening that we just can't believe this is really happening. Lawlessness, just things being so confused in our children and just an unbelievable division that is going on in our country, in marriages, in families, and on and on. But what I want to tell you, sometimes, and I have some prayers that come into the box, and I don't know who I'm praying for, I don't ask for names on, God knows who you are, and some aren't getting answered. But I want you to know that God, when you look at a tree, a dormant tree, you think you don't see anything going on. Because we can look right outside and we see a lifeless tree, but that's not what God sees. You see, when you look at a tree, do we see that it's dead, our circumstance is dead, or what's going on? God, are you really alive? Do you really want to do something here? Like, we need God. But you don't see what God is doing. Even when we look at that dormant tree, it's growing roots at a time like this. And it actually has sap going up through its veins, getting ready to burst forth blossoms and leaves for the spring. So it's busy at work and you can't see it. Now I want you to know God is the same way. When you don't see nothing going on, God is doing the same thing. You can't see things that God is doing. And it's so hard for us to sometimes have a check. And I've had to use that same word many times to encourage people, especially when you're in a circumstance where life is just getting darker and darker. Don't worry, God is still on the throne. And don't worry, God will work it out in His time. Seasons happen, but man cannot duplicate a season. We all go through seasons in our life. Good and bad, we go through springs, and we go through summers, and we go through falls, and we go through winters. But only God can control the seasons. And only in His perfect time do things happen. And it's so important. Well, now my message is coming from 2 Timothy 4, and I have to read it to you. 4, 1 through 5. Now I want to tell you, this is Paul. He's writing a letter to Timothy. It's his last letter. And he's telling Paul in prison, Paul, you got to prepare for this. He says, in the presence of God, our Jesus Christ, who will judge the living and the dead. And in view of His appearing in His kingdom, I give you this charge. Preach the word. Be prepared in season and out of season. Now that's what I'm going to talk about. Being prepared in season and out of season. Now correct, rebuke, and encourage. 3 powerful words right there. And with great patience and careful instruction. For the time will come when people will not put up with great doctrine, instead to suit their own desires. Doesn't that kind of sound like what's kind of going on? I mean, like, this is Paul writing to Timothy. Okay, ladies, here we go. So instead, to suit their own desires and gather around with great number of teachers to say what they are itching ears want to hear, but not true doctrine. They will turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths. But you and you. He says, keep your head in all situations, endure hardship, and do the work of an evangelist. And do a thorough job as God's servant. Wow. Those are some of his last words to tell Timothy. He wrote in a letter. And I feel like that was such a powerful message. And like I said, I struggled here with this. And so You know, when we go through a winter season, it is really hard for us because God wants us to be fruitful. Well, how can we be fruitful when we don't see and we don't feel things going on? And I keep pointing to a tree because I want you to kind of somehow get a visual. Because when I'm talking, I want you to think as God thinks and sees and talks. And so the more fruitful we can become. How many of us know we might be missing what God is doing, but that's okay. We know that God is faithful and these seasons will pass. And there is about to be a blessing for fruit. And you have to go through the season. You just have to. Has anyone ever asked a farmer if we had a good winter? Or a gardener? They would tell you two things. And I know because my husband, I should maybe know, is a farmer. And you know what he says? It's not cold enough. We didn't kill the bugs. So, do you know God sometimes needs to kill some bugs? We got to go through a winter and God has to kill some bugs. This is important. You know, just like God has to kill bugs that are either, you know, in our relationship, He has to kill bugs that are in our churches, in our world, in our nation. It's important that we have that season because God has to kill bugs, but we can't see it sometimes. And bugs can be people. Bugs can be sin. Bugs can be an environment that we're in, an unhealthy environment. You see, if we don't let God do the freezing, and He sometimes has to get it so cold and go deeper, because if you don't go deep enough, you can't kill the larva. You can't kill what's frozen deeper. And we can't see what's deep, because we can't see the larva that's hiding underneath. But it's important. And the second thing they'll tell you, we didn't get enough moisture. I mean, I've heard that. We didn't get enough moisture. It's so important because like trees and like plants, they need the snow. You know, the snow is wonderful moisture for a farm ground. I don't care where you are. Because it soaks in slowly and marinates. And you know, when you look at a tree, do you know that when you look at a tree, you can tell how deep the roots are? And when a tree is growing, that's when it grows the most, is when you see nothing going on. Because it's trying to grow roots down deep to the water that's way down below. And you can tell by the roots because how tall the tree is. That's how deep the roots are. When you look how wide the tree is, that's how wide the roots are. Did you know that? That is amazing. So can you imagine what we can't see? God is taking it deeper. So how do you go deeper? You have to be in the Word. You have to be in the living Word. It's so important because God wants to take you deeper. Every time you open up your Bible, I'm telling you, He takes you deeper. He just wants to give you living water so that you can grow deeper and get that nourishment. And if you can marinate, because you know, sometimes when we're so busy, because in the summertime, you know, we're so busy planting, harvesting, and all that stuff, we don't have time. But winter is the time to take the time to marinate, because this is your season. This is your season to marinate and to let that living water just soak into you so that you can be prepared for what God is about to do. If you can respond in the right way, you will get through that season so much faster because you move heaven. You have more for you than against you. You have an army that is waiting for you to call on Him and ready to come fight your battle. You don't have to do anything. The battle's already been won. That is so important. If you guys can just grasp that, I hope this is just really helping you all by putting on and taking you deeper, and also just equipping you, because I think it's so important that we stay equipped, but that you learn how to be equipped, because that's the key and that's the success in a world that's getting darker, is how to be prepared for battle, how to always be ready, I'm telling you, I can turn on music on at any time. I don't even need to have the radio. I can just go into a place of worship right instantly. Because I never know when I get that call. And then I want to share one other thing that happens in winter. How many of you guys do garden? Yeah. You know what? A little bit? Well, I think you'll love this one too. Winter also helps prune perennials and annuals. Now, how many of you know perennials and annuals in your garden? Okay. Annuals are only there for a season. But when winter comes, it kills them. But perennials will live through a winter. You know, God, and I want to talk as a master gardener, and I want you to just, when I say gardener or the master or the farmer, that you just put him there. You know, as a master gardener, he places perennials in, and also in your garden, because they're going to come back every year. And it's so important that you know that. And it's so important that you know who your friends are. Because God places people in your lives as perennials or annuals. Annuals bloom for a season. And sometimes they are so glittery and so bubbly, but they're only there for you when the times are good. But when winter comes, you find out who your true friends are. Is that true? You find out when winter comes. You find out when you go through a hard time who's the perennials that God has planted right beside you. What about those beautiful tulips? You know, they're perennial. They were planted a long time ago. You know, I love those dappies. And I love those tulips. Because I have friends, I don't see them for a very long time. They were a friendship back in high school. But when I see them, it's like we never say goodbye. We just catch up right where we are. No judgment, no condemnation, no nothing. I just love my tulips. I love my dappies. You guys got some friends like that? But you know what? If you needed them, they would be right there. They come up faithfully every spring. Low maintenance, they just come up when it's the right time. Isn't that amazing? They do, they just come up when it's the right time, when you need them. Ladies, I hope you're enjoying this because this is so important. Because God also uses your people, your friends, in your workplace, perennials or annuals. But it's important to have the annuals too, because we need them when we're in that season more than ever. We need their brightness. We need their joy. But do not be disappointed when they leave. Do not judge them. They don't know. And I tell you, as times get darker, it is more important that I have more perennials around me, because I call on them when I need prayer. When I'm going through a winter or a hard time, I need more perennials. Does that make sense? Because God needs perennials that are going to keep giving life and speaking a good word for you and encouraging you. It's so important, ladies. Are you a perennial or an annual? How is God using you to be your friends? He needs annuals. He needs annuals and he needs perennials. And it's okay. It's okay. Maybe you're just supposed to be there for a season. And that's okay. God calls you just to be an annual, and it's okay. You know, we do that with Footsteps to Hope. We're there for just a season. When they need us, we're the annual. But we're also the perennial when they need us 5 years down the road and they got re-diagnosed. Amen? Amen. I hope I'm giving you a picture of how important it is that God uses people as perennials and annuals. And he uses those gorgeous dappies and tulips. Amen? Those low maintenance people, those low maintenance, those are the best kind. God uses each and every one of you for such a time as this. But it sometimes is the winter that distinguishes who they are. It isn't until we have a winter season that we find out who is the perennial and who is it that we need to go to when we're going through a winter season. I've been able to go to some churches and tell them the prophetic word for Colorado, and some shepherds are like, oh my gosh, we've been waiting and praying for that because we need it. And so what an encouraging word for shepherds. And so I got to be invited to some shepherds, and I'm telling you, they drilled me. They drilled me. Do you know what you're talking about? I told them I've been in BSF for 8 years, which is a Bible study fellowship. It's totally awesome. It has drawn me closer to the Lord. I felt like it's been equipping me because it just takes me into the Word. And the other thing that the pastors have told me is you're not about religion, you're about a relationship because you know Him so intimately. And you need to equip people to know Him. Not just know the Word and not just be caught up in religion, but to personally know a shepherd and His voice. I got invited. These pastors then, they checked me off, I was okay. And then they said, you know what? I told them how the Holy Spirit told me I needed to talk to women. Okay, I can't tell you. Then they've been mentoring me, so then I said, you know, I don't know how to do this. I'm not a pastor, I don't know what I'm doing. And I said, I don't know whether to set up like a 501c3 or what I should do, and they said, no, do not set up a 501c3. There are some things coming down the pipelines that the government is going to start telling churches what they can and cannot say from the pulpit. And I said, what? Ladies, I'm telling you. Now I'm telling you because I'm not in the Secret Service. And because I'm not a pastor, they can't tell me what I can and can't say. So they were telling me, no, please keep it how you got it going. And I really do believe there's some things coming down churches that are being told how they should be seeker-friendly to get more, but they're not preaching the word. They're twisting the word to keep the numbers up and the numbers high. And they said, it's good you didn't go to seminary because that's what they're teaching them, is how to be seeker-friendly and just twist the word a little bit. Well, I don't want to twist the word because Timothy tells us that it's going to happen. He told Timothy, he said, be encouraged. Okay, I have to read you the message. I'm going to start with the message. You know, sometimes I like to read a scripture, but then go read it in another version because it just like puts it in another good perspective. So out of the message, this is how it says. I can't impress this you too strongly. God is looking over your shoulder. Isn't that kind of cool? That God is looking over your shoulder. That Christ Himself is the judge. And with the final say on everyone living and dead. Now He is about to break into the open with His rule. So proclaim the message with intensity. Keep on your watch. Challenge, warn, and urge your people. Don't ever quit. Don't ever quit. Just keep it simple. Ladies, I try to keep it simple. My grandma told me, do the kiss factor, keep it simple, sugar. And I try to. I hope, ladies, that when you come, that I can keep it simple enough so that you can understand what God is trying to do. So that you aren't consumed or not understanding parables or the word and messages that are coming through. Then in verse 3, he says, you're going to find that there will be times when people will have no stomach for solid teaching, but will fill up on spiritual junk food, catchy opinions that tickle their fancy. Isn't that kind of what is happening? Amen? Like, I just see that so much. They'll turn their backs on truth and chase mirages, but you Keep your eye on what you are doing. Accept the hard times along with the good. Keep the message alive and do a thorough job as God's servant. I don't know, but every time I reread that, like it just takes me deeper and it takes me in another place. But we are living in such a time as that. Well, then those pastors, they invited me to a select meeting, which I was really, really excited about. I got to go to a meeting of shepherds, a whole bunch of shepherds, and they were on a mission and trying to strategize how we could get prayer back in schools. I would be so honored. They go, we would love to have a woman. Because beyond, there's not many women pastors. Many of you are aware of that. There's not many women pastors. Well, anyway, so I was like there wasn't very many there, like the only one pretty much there. And I haven't met many of the pastors because I only got to the secretary. So I didn't know some of the pastors because I've been knocking on their doors and I'm like, this is great. If I can build a relationship with pastors, I can get in. Like this might be my way to get in. Well, I had no idea. So we're there at this meeting. It was amazing. It was great ideas. I was not prepared for what happened. There were some pastors that got up and said, you know Jesus is not the only way. I was sick now. I was sick to my stomach. And I'm telling you, I witnessed wolves in sheep's clothing. Now, ladies, I have been praying for you. I've been praying for you before tonight. That you will accept what I'm telling you as true and as a warning. And I want you to be blinded like I was. And I leaned over to the pastor and I said, are you kidding me? This is really, I thought we would be more united than this. And he said, I want to tell you, you're looking at Revelation. We are living in Revelation. He said, you know what? This was another test we had for you. How you responded. I said, I'm going to be sick. And I literally had to leave. I was so sick. And my heart just wept because I knew a couple of those church leaders and they were a pretty big church. And I was sick. I'm like, they're leading them falsely. They're leading their sheep. They don't know that they're not being led. Now, ladies, what the Bible tells us, Jesus tells us, Paul writes it so many times. John in Revelation warns and warns and warns of false teachers. It is so important that you know your word. Because if you know, please, you have to hold me accountable. I don't ever want to mess with the word, but please know if I do, please correct me. Because you have to know the word to know the word, who is preaching falsely and who isn't. It's up to you. And please don't ever put a pastor, don't ever put me up on a pedestal. You only put him. You only put him on that pedestal. It is so important. We are living in the day. I would not have believed it. Seriously, ladies, I would not believe that we are living in a day for such as this. And that there are shepherds leading churches falsely. But I know that we are living in a day because the world is full of lawlessness and the church hasn't been able to rise up. Well, now it's making sense because now some of these churches are saying we can't because they're telling us what we can and can't say. And I'm at war. I'm telling you. And when I spoke in Brighton, the pastor asked me, is your real name Deborah? I go, actually it is. He goes, you know Deborah in the Bible? She was a warrior. I said, I'll wear that name. I'll wear that name. Amen? Amen. And so I'm about equipping. And I think it's so important for us to realize that the enemy is actually after America. And I don't know if you realize, America was founded one nation under God. It was founded like Israel, one nation under God. Now, you can't imagine why the enemy might be coming after America and causing so much grief and havoc, but if we aren't in tune, we know it's the attack of the enemy. But because we don't, and God has blessed our land to be so fruitful. We are a remnant of Abraham. We are a remnant of God's chosen people for a reason. We have not only been fruitful, we have blessed the world with food. Do you not only realize we literally feed the world? I'm talking agriculture now. I'm talking food and livestock. But we feed the world. But do you also really realize we also feed more than the world? We feed God's spiritual food. We send more missionaries out than any other nation to the world. We have more missionaries in Africa, in Asia, in Australia. We send out more missionaries all over the world. When there is a world in crisis, America protects. I talked to the military, and they said, you know, America fights for what is right. We still stand on the truth of what is right. Do you know if you go into other countries, they're raising America's flag? Do you know they are praying for America because they need America to be strong? Because there's countries that have been overtaken. One of my Bible study fellowship gal, she was telling me she had visited a country, and it took 2 years that country no longer had people in their churches. 2 years, and they were overtaken. She says, you have no idea what it's like to be overtaken by another country. You have no idea. You've been so protected and so blessed, but if it wouldn't have been for America, that's why I raised the flag of the United States in our country. Because just like when we had the tornado, the hurricanes, there's words out there thanking firemen, thanking people. They're thanking America, and I'm telling you, there are nations praying for America to stand strong because they need America to be strong. But we got so much going on. We got the enemy just attacking us in so many ways. Because I felt the Holy Spirit tell me, you got to equip the women. There's things coming down. You got to equip more women. You got to equip them because there are things coming down, and at a faster rate than I'm scared. I'm not scared. I'm scared that the people I speak to will be scared. I don't want you to be scared because, you know, I've read Revelation. I've studied it. And you know what's cool about that? Is I was really frightened to read Revelation because I didn't like some of those things that was going to happen. But you know, when I studied it, it was like he'd come alongside as my daddy. And he says, I'm the commander. He said, these things are going to happen. He says, but I want you to know, and Revelation tells us, the ones that are righteous and that know his voice will be protected. There's going to be such an outpouring. You know, when they had those fires in California, and it burned a lot of California, there were some amazing God stories, and I love always hearing what God's doing. I mean, you know, we need to hear what God is doing. There was a Calvary church that was spared from the fire. There were so many miracle stories. And God wants to use stories and things right now because we're trying to turn the world to who is our God, who is our protector. That's amazing. There are things that are happening in your lives right now. God wants to use it as a testimony and share your testimony because who's your God? Who's your healer? Who's your comforter? You know, I want to know. I want to know that God. Because anything I'm studying, that's not working. Anything I'm getting fed is not helping my soul. And the sheep know his voice, but the sheep also know the word. It's so important that you guys dig in your own Bibles because you need to know the word. And I don't care if you can open up the last book, read Revelation. There's so much prophetic things happen to Jezebel's spirit that's even in America. We are fighting lamination spirit. And I'm telling you, he's taking me on a whole other path because now he's like wanting me to equip you about a Jezebel spirit. And I mean, there's just so much. I'm like, now you want me to do what? So ladies, get prepared. Because we've got to be ready. But you know, just like back in the day of Noah, you know, it wasn't raining and he was building an ark. Ladies, it's not raining yet. But we got to build an ark. We got to get our family ready. We got to get things lined up. And there's going to be some things people are falling away from churches because they're not getting fed. They're looking for the truth. They're not getting fed there. There's so much, and ladies, you know what you know. You can pray for them. I'm equipping you not to be here, but to be out there. Because the world is getting darker. And the Bible tells us that the lights will get lighter. God is going to get brighter and brighter, and He's going to use each and every one of us for such a time as this, like Esther, to be lights in a world that is getting darker.